have turned the newspaper boy into a diver for pearls. Or I'll play like the Steven Universe soundtrack. Pan's Labyrinth I can watch over and over again and enjoy. And they have like a sweet and spicy soup broth. I love Edinburgh. So if I'm liking a book, I'll be like, well, why am I liking it? The next section of questions are going to be about books, which I'm sure you've all come to my channel for. So the first question is from Petra, and she says, do you have some literary characters that you associate with your childhood? Yes, Mandy Hope from the Animal Arc series. She probably, I wanted to be her when I was a child. She was like the daughter of 2 vets. She got to travel around the world and help animals, and I was like, that needs to be my life. And you know, I gobbled those books as a child, so definitely Mandy Hope. Then the next question comes from Celia, and she says, share a bookish memory from your childhood. I remember, it must have been when I first read The Northern Lights, and I didn't understand it at all, but I still enjoyed it, I still loved it. Then we were going on holiday to Orlando, I think. It was like our big family holiday. It was like the first time we were ever going to go to America, and probably the last time, because I was really nervous about the flight at the time. So my grandma bought me a big copy of The Scarecrow and the Boy, I think, by Philip Pullman, so that I could read it on the plane, and it could like make me less nervous. And I loved that. I don't remember the story at all, but I remember loving it, because the illustrations were beautiful too, and it was just a really lovely story. I wonder where it is actually. I have no idea where that book is, but I hope I can find it somewhere and rekindle that memory. So the next question comes from Ashley, and she says, do you own any books that you would never get rid of? Most of my books I probably wouldn't get rid of. It would be very painful, and I have talked about this once before, but the book I definitely wouldn't is The Secrets of Jin-Shei. It is my absolute favourite. You can see how much it has stayed with me and how much I've used it and abused it. There was one time that I almost lost this book because I lent it to a friend out in Hong Kong, and then she and I kind of like drifted away and lost contact, and then I was like, oh shit, she's got my book. So I left it like a year, kind of being like, oh, I'm ignoring, and I really wanted to read it, and I knew that I was going to be leaving Hong Kong soon, so I just had to message her and be like, yo, can I have my book back? Thankfully she still had it. Oh my god, if she had got rid of it, I would have flipped the lid. So the next question comes from Michelle, and she says, if you could live inside of a book, which one would it be and why? Now for me, I said to Michelle, I was like, okay, I'm gonna think about this question. I'm gonna put a lot of thought into it, and I'm gonna come up with one that isn't Harry Potter, because of course everyone wants to go to Hogwarts. But then it was just really hard. I did think perhaps Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, because you can kind of live in the current world as much as you would like, but then you can go between different times and places. But then I was like, oh, but then, you know, there were very specific things that you can only go back in time, but you're going to be in the same place or whatever. And I was like, maybe I wouldn't get to go to where I want to go. So then I was thinking maybe I'd go into the Nakano thrift shop, because I would love to live in Japan, and just the life of living in that shop and kind of all the crazy cast around you would be exciting. But then I was like, I have this thing where I've always wanted to live in Japan, but I've worried that if I live there, it won't have the charm that it still has. I've been to Japan like 4 or 5 times now, and every time I love it just as much, and I worry that if I lived there, it will, like, the idea or the glamour or the excitement of it would kind of go a little bit. So then I chose finally The Northern Lights. It's not Harry Potter, but I chose it because everybody wants a demon. I want a demon. We can have the comforts of our own world to some extent. I mean, it's not exactly the Lyra's world is not exactly our world, but it has a lot of similarities which will be comfortable, but I want a demon. So the next question comes from Mel, and Mel asks, how many books have you added to your wish list since being on Booktube? Probably too many. I don't really have a wish list. I have a list on Amazon, which I literally just look for books and then kind of go down the Amazon hole where it suggests, and then some of them I save on a wish list. But these are books that I probably will never find in a bookshop. Unknown books, I guess. None of them actually come from Booktube though. And then I also have a list of books on my Mac, on my notes. that's over 100 books or something. I think they're all from Booktube. Yeah, but I think that's before I joined Booktube. It was when I was just watching Booktube. And now I just kind of like remember. I remember books, don't remember them and be like, oh yes, that's wishlist, I need to go buy that. But I'll have a sense of them in my head, and then when I go into the bookshop, if I see them, I might be more inclined to buy it because I like, oh yes, I remember blah blah, talked about that. And so it's hard to say, but probably a lot. And then the next question comes from Wilson, and he says, is there any book you would recommend to all readers? This was really hard. To the point where I was almost like, no, I can't. It's too much. But then I thought, well, I don't want to be a coward from this question, so I should come up with an answer. And I came up with The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It's just a book about happiness, and it's really sweet, and it's a classic. And it is for children, but adults can get a lot out of it. And I think it just has such a wonderful sense to it that all kinds of readers can fall in love with this book. You can see that my edition is probably dropped in the bath, very much enjoyed. And yeah, it's a book about happiness, and who doesn't like happiness? So the next few questions come from Sophie. The first one she says are, what are some of the first books which got you into reading as a child? Definitely the Animal Arc series, definitely some Jacqueline Wilson. I remember one of the biggest ones that me and my brothers really liked was Cliffhanger by Jacqueline Wilson. What other ones? Percy the Park Keeper. I remember reading those books and having the audio tapes on cassette back in the day. And yeah, I guess those, and then of course I got really into reading with the Harry Potter series. And then her second question is, inspired by your Bad Book Good Movie series, is there one book in particular that you would like to see adapted to a film, and any specific actors you would like to see cast in it? I'm not so good with the actors. I'm not very good at remembering names or remembering actors' faces. I was like, oh, that one. But one book that I would definitely like to see made into film is actually 1Q84. I think there's a lot of potential for this to be a film. It's a massive book, so it would have to be... I wouldn't want to see it split into 3 films. Like, the book is a trilogy. I think the film could work as one. I think there's a lot in this book that isn't wholly necessary. So, and I imagine it would look very cool as a film, as long as it was made by a Japanese director with Japanese cast. That would have to be a necessity, but I would really like it, because also there's something about this book that really creeps me out, and I think I've tabbed the moments that creep me out, because so that I don't know if I do ever read it again, I can skip that part. I don't know why, but there are these little people in this book, and there's something about them that really unsettles me, like deeply disturbs me. But I think you could have a very like Pan's Labyrinth-esque style, or aesthetic at least, of this book. So this is one I would quite like to see made as a film. And then the next question comes from Alex, and he says, would you ever consider a buddy read with me? Yes, of course, I'd love a buddy read with you, Alex. You can message me wherever you can find me, here, Twitter, Goodreads, whatever. Send me a message if you want to read a book. And if you have any books in mind, you just have to let me know, and I'll try to find it. Yeah, and I do have a book that I'm probably going to get to sometime soon, and it is The Temple of the Golden Pavilion by Mishima, and it's a book that I think that you would like, Alex. So if you are intrigued by the book, if you like the sound of the synopsis, let me know. If you get yourself a copy, we can buddy read it. But again, any book that you want to suggest, I'm more than open. So the next question comes from Olivia, and she says, if you could be a book, what book would you be and why? There were 2 ways that this question could go. It could either go, what kind of book, but I've got that question coming up later, #spoiler, or it could be, what book specifically would you be? So I went down that route. I would be specifically Cloud Atlas as a book. I talked about this in my 5 recommendations for writers in 5 minutes. I would want to be this book because it's kind of like the best of all things. It has different sort of genres all wrapped up in one. It has different writing styles all wrapped into one, and this was the book that got me into David Mitchell. So I guess, yeah, I would want to be this book because it's a good mix of everything, and it has some really strong themes in it which I really enjoyed, so I would want to be this book. Next question comes from Lydia, and she says, what's a book that challenged your perspective or changed it? Now, I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but the book would be Refusal of the Shadow. I learned a lot of really important things, and I think that this is a book that a lot of people should read in understanding the nuances of own voice literature and understand why we need it, and not just at the surface level of, oh, we need diversity, therefore own voices. It goes a lot deeper than that, and this book really helps you to understand why, and it kind of taught me a lot of things that I think have shaped me in my beliefs and my understandings of diversity. The reason I'm not going to talk too much about it is because I have actually made a really long video about it. I'll link the video down below, but yeah, Refusal of the Shadow, definitely. And then the next two questions come from Vendi, and she asks, do you read books because you find them on Booktube? If so, what's your favourite one you've read and who introduced it to you? I don't usually. Booktube inspires the books that I buy, but I don't think I ever have actually seen one person talk about one book and be like, yes, I need to read that right now, and then gone out and bought it. I definitely really enjoyed A Natural History of Dragons, but Davide bought it for me. I would have probably bought it anyway because the cover is really beautiful, but I do know a lot of people on Booktube were talking about it and enjoyed it, so that kind of led me. But there is one book that I want to buy, and it'll probably be the next book that I probably do buy, which has specifically come from Olivia and Sophie, and they have both talked about this book, and they've both kind of suggested I read it, that I might enjoy it, and that's Radiance by Catherynne and Valente, I think. And yeah, I'm really excited for that book, and I think I will really enjoy it from what Olivia and Sophie have said. So that, I guess, is an answer. And then her second question is, do you have any bookish buzzwords, words that you use to describe books that make you more likely to pick them up, e.g. exploration of masculinity, Afrofuturism, etc.? Both of those things I would definitely... exploration of masculinity is definitely something I am greatly interested in, because it doesn't get explored well enough in adult literature. And I think when it does get explored, it's always in reference to some form of marginalised masculinity, and I would like to see a more broader text that deconstructs masculinity and assesses it, which I thought All That Man Is by David Saloy, I think his name is. I thought that was going to be it, but it wasn't. It was awful. Afrofuturism, definitely I want to read more of those books. I didn't think I had a buzzword, but now I think about it, I think I do. If it's about culture, I'm probably going to be interested. If it's probably from a Japanese author, or like Japanese, then I will probably read it. The same probably goes for Chinese. And possibly another buzzword would probably be... I don't know how to express this as, but well, I guess allegorical history retellings in a magical realist way. I know that's not a buzzword, but that sort of idea would definitely be one up my street. So they are all the questions for this topic. And the next topic is biographies. These are going to be all the questions that are kind of just a bit personal about me in general, rather than about anything in particular. So the first question comes from Marx, and he says, being a hypochondriac, what have you been convinced that you were dying from? Basically, any form of cancer, I've been convinced I've had it. The worst thing about me is when other people have something, particularly something that I haven't heard of before, and so I learn about it, to understand this person's trouble with it. The more I learn about it, the more I'm convinced I have it. The biggest thing, actually, is I can't watch anything that has anything to do with, or I can't watch or hear anything to do with knees, particularly knee surgery. Like, if I hear that somebody is going through it, even if it's a fictional character, I feel like I can't suddenly move my knees anymore, and it's horrible. Okay, next one is from Debbie, and she says, if you could describe yourself as a book, and this time I'm going for genre, what would it be and why? So for me, I think I would describe myself as... Oh, sugar, I should have probably thought about this a bit more before I answered it. I would probably describe myself as a magical realist book. Although I don't know if that counts because that's just, I don't know if I'm saying that just because I like that genre. But I think I think at least I'm quite just a normal person, and every now and then something fun or exciting happens that's not so normal. So magical realism. I don't know, those questions always really make me uncomfortable because it feels like you have to toot your own trumpet a bit too much, and yeah. But I hope that's a good enough answer for you, Debbie. So the next question also comes from Freda, and she asks, you say that you've done irrational things because you were convinced you were dying. So what was either the most irrational thing you did because of that, or what was the most beautiful outcome of one of those impulsive situations? I moved to Argentina for a month. Well, I bought a one-way ticket to Argentina with the intention of living there because I was like, I had done some travelling in Asia, and particularly Southeast Asia, and I hadn't had any injections before I went. Because I had some before I left for Asia in general, but I needed top-ups, but I was like, oh, they cost a lot of money, and I was going to cities, I wasn't going into the most at-risk areas. But then I still believed that I had caught something from a mosquito, because mosquitoes, I'm allergic to mosquito bites, and mosquitoes love me. So I had like really bad swellings, and I had one particular like rash which didn't look good, but the doctor said it was fine. So I guess I was like, that's it, I've probably only got 6 months to live now, I may as well just do something different and fun and exciting. So I moved to Argentina, bought a one-way ticket, but then I ended up not liking Buenos Aires as much as I thought I would. So then I just went travelling, and then went back to Hong Kong. The next question comes from Anthony, and he asks, do you go to university? Yes, I'm currently in my master's. I'm studying applied cultural analysis at the University of Lund. So that's a university in Sweden, because it's free. And I feel all education should be free. The next question comes from Michelle, and she says, what would you consider your greatest life accomplishment until now, and why? I think my greatest life accomplishment was deciding to screw everything when I finished my undergraduate and just moved to Hong Kong. I bought a one-way ticket when I was 21 years old. I bought a one-way ticket to Hong Kong, and I was just like, I had about £800 in my pocket, and I was like, I'm gonna make it work. So yeah, and it did work. For 4 years it worked. So, I think that is probably it. Next question comes from Jasmine, and Jasmine asks, what do you spend most money on apart from books? I wish I had an exciting answer for this, but it is probably food. I am not much of a shopper in any way. A lot of my money goes out either on books or actually traveling, I guess, maybe. But that's not... But I feel like at least with traveling, it is more like big sums less often, whereas with food it's just a constant outflow of me gorging myself. So then the next question comes from Wilson. He says, what are you dying of most recently in regards to my hypochondria? Most recently, I guess it would be a brain tumour, because I've been getting headaches, and right, this is why I know it's irrational. I've been getting headaches because I know I've been having some problems with tension in my muscles, in my shoulders and stuff, and I can literally feel them. I can feel the pain in my shoulder and the way that it kind of connects the headache just in the back of or the lower part of my head. I can feel it, yet still, I'm just like, but no, definitely a brain tumour. Like, to the point where I even, like, when my muscles are most tense and I can kind of feel, like, the knots and stuff in my shoulders, this is it, this is the tumour that has just spread it. Like, it makes no sense, and I understand that, but what can we do? I just always believe I'm dying. So Wilson's next question is, did you go to / are you going to university, and what's your degree in? I already said that with my master's. I did my undergraduate 5 years or so ago, and that was in writing, directing and performance at the University of York. And then the next question comes from Hannah, and Hannah asks, what Friends from the TV show character do you relate to the most? And I think I would like to relate the most to Phoebe, because she is the best, and I think she has a lot of the same sentiments as me, and even though she's a bit kooky, I think it's cool. So I relate to that, but I think in reality, the Friends character that I am the most like is probably just Rachel. I think I'm a Rachel. And not in the best of ways, probably. So next question would be from Davide, and he says, if you were to live on a desert island for 1 month, assuming you could survive, and were allowed to bring only one book, would you trust a book chosen by me, or would you pick one up yourself? And then he put in brackets, it's basically just a cooler way to ask how much you care about me. I would trust Davide to buy a book for me to survive me a month on a desert island. He knows my taste well enough. He's bought books from me before and has succeeded in that respect. So yeah, I think he would do well by me. Next question comes from Laura. It's, tell us about one of your big life dreams. I think my biggest life dream would probably be to... So my biggest life dream is the cheesiest one, which is just to be happy and to be comfortable, to survive like a nice, comfortable life. But one of my biggest life dreams, I think I would really like to set up a bookshop / cafe, which I know is everyone's dream, but in like a sort of big building that could also work as a research centre. I very much believe that we should start developing research outside of university institutes, particularly university institutes that have become businesses as opposed to hubs of learning for all. So yeah, there is a sociological cafe in Norway, and it was created by this sociologist called Axel Schora, and he came and spoke to our university and he talked about it, and I really liked his idea. His one doesn't so much work per se as a cafe, it's more like a centre where people who are based in universities come and they sort of do like cultural consultancy work for companies, but it's not, even though they all come from like, I think it's Trondheim University or something, even though they all come from there, they're not, the work they do there isn't affiliated with the university, and having it as a cafe has opened it up for members of the public to come in and ask questions and to also get involved, which I think is amazing, and I would love to see something like that in the UK, particularly down in the southwest of the UK. So that would be an ideal dream, but that could also work anywhere. Wherever I may end up, that is something that I would like to achieve. So then the final question of this Q&A comes from Lydia, and she asks, what do you like to do outside of books? I mean, I know I've already kind of answered this question from Mark, but I think this is more like, Mark's question was more like, what are your interests? Whereas this is like, what do I like to do? And I like to go to the beach. I like to relax. I like to not have to worry about life. So I like going to the beach helps. I really like to go to lovely towns and experiencing different places. Particularly around the local area that you can just do in a day. I actually really enjoy walking. I like hiking. I don't do it so much, but I do really enjoy it. I walk everywhere because I don't drive. I like walking everywhere. And I think I would like to do more creative things, like do more creative living. So that can happen in any sort of different facet, but there's something I would definitely like to do more of, whether it be hosting a particular film night at my local cinema, or kind of helping out backstage in our local theatre or something like that. So kind of all things creative and artsy is what I do, and all things sort of spatially enjoyable, like walking and going to the beach. So yeah, these are the questions. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I think it's probably going to be a super long one, and I'm really sorry about that. But you asked for it by asking all these wonderful questions. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can always give me a thumbs up. As always, you are more than welcome to subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye.